Have you ever wondered how an app like Netflix or Amazon can just update one little feature and the whole site doesn't go down? Well, the secret lies in this massive, revolutionary shift in how software gets built. So today, we're going to dive into that shift from these giant single programs to a whole new world of tiny, independent services all working together. It really boils down to this one question. It's the fundamental choice that developers have to make today. Do you build everything into one massive, interconnected structure? Or do you break it all down into hundreds, maybe even thousands of smaller, independent pieces? The path you choose here, it determines pretty much everything, from how fast you can innovate to how well your app can survive a crisis. Okay, so let's rewind the clock a little bit. We need to start with the traditional way of doing things, this all-in-one approach that honestly dominated software for decades. This is the origin story for most of the apps we all grew up with. This approach has a name. It's called a monolithic architecture. And the two phrases you really got to remember here are tightly coupled and single unified unit. So think of it like this. Every single function, from the buttons you click on a web page, to the inventory system, to the database that stores your info, it's all woven together into one single massive program. This diagram here, it's a perfect picture of what we're talking about. Let's just imagine this whole box is one giant office building. The user interface, the inventory service, the shipping logic, they're all just different departments, but they're all under the exact same roof. They share the same foundation, the same plumbing, the same electrical grid. Everything is completely intertwined. And right there, that quote on screen, it hits the nail on the head. This is the monolith's biggest, most glaring flaw. Let's go back to our office building analogy. If the plumbing fails on just one floor, the entire building might have to shut down, right? It's the exact same thing with this kind of software. A tiny bug, a tiny one, in the shipping service could literally crash the entire website. It creates this one single massive point of failure.
But hey, it wasn't all bad. There were real trade-offs and reasons people built things this way. For new projects, the pros are pretty compelling. It's way simpler to get started and to deploy your first version. The cons, though? Oh boy, they really start to bite as you grow. That tightly coupled thing we talked about makes it a nightmare to scale just one piece of the app. And you get this technology lock-in, meaning you're stuck with whatever tech you started with, for better or for worse.
So, all these challenges with the monolith, they forced a rethink. A really revolutionary idea started to take hold. What if, instead of one giant, rigid building, what if we built with smaller, independent blocks? What if we could build with something like digital Legos? And that brings us to the microservice architecture. Notice the language here is the total opposite of what we just saw. Small, independent, loosely coupled. It's a whole new philosophy. Here, every feature is basically its own mini application. A separate service that does just one job and does it well. Like a service just for handling payments, or one just for managing user profiles. And this comparison, it just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, we've got our single monolithic building. But on the right, it's a completely different world. It's like a modern business campus. Each service, accounts, inventory, shipping, is now its own separate building. They all operate independently, but they talk to each other through these well-defined pathways we call APIs. You can think of the APIs as the roads and the phone lines that connect the whole campus. Now, of course, this approach has its own set of trade-offs. Nothing's a free lunch, right? The pros are all about flexibility and resilience. You can update, deploy, and scale each service all by itself. So if the inventory building needs a major upgrade, you can do that without ever disrupting the accounts building. The con? Well, as you can imagine, being the mayor of a whole campus of services is a lot more complex than just managing one single building. And this quote right here gets to the heart of why this stuff actually matters to all of us. This architecture, it's the engine that powers the internet's giants. When Amazon updates its shopping cart, they're not rebuilding the whole store. They're just renovating one building, the shopping cart service. Meanwhile, the product pages, the reviews, everything else just keeps running perfectly, no interruptions. Okay, so you've got this amazing campus of independent services, but where do you actually build it? You can't put it on a rigid, old-school foundation.
You need a foundation that's just as flexible as the buildings on top of it. And today, that foundation is the cloud.
So what is the cloud, really? When you boil it all down, cloud computing is basically like renting your servers, storage, and databases over the internet. Instead of buying land and building your own power plant for your campus, you just pay for the utilities you need as you need them from a provider. It's the perfect elastic foundation for a flexible microservice campus. And even within the cloud, you've got choices. Think of it like real estate. The public cloud on the left, that's like renting space in a giant shared co-working building. It's cost-effective, it's flexible, it's great. A private cloud, on the other hand, is like owning your own dedicated building. You get way more control and security, but yeah, you're also responsible for all the costs and upkeep. But here's the cool part. You don't actually have to choose just one. You can get the best of both worlds. A hybrid cloud lets you keep your most sensitive data in your own private building while using the flexible public cloud for everything else. And multi-cloud means you can lease space from several different providers. The goal for all of this is to avoid getting locked into one company and to fine-tune everything for cost and security. So, we have our microservice campus. It's built on a flexible cloud foundation. Now we get to one of the biggest payoffs, how we can update our software safely and without causing total chaos. Let's go right back to our analogy. How in the world do you renovate the payments building without closing down the entire campus for business? Well, the answer lies in some pretty clever deployment strategies. Let's look at 3 popular ways to do this. With a blue/green deployment, you build a whole new identical version of the service, and then you just flip a switch to send all the traffic from the old one to the new one. A canary release is way more cautious. You roll out the change to just a tiny group of users first, like a canary in a coal mine, to see if anything breaks. And a ramped release is similar. You just slowly ramp up the release to more and more users until everyone is on the new version. So what this all means, what the big takeaway is that this combination, microservices, the cloud, and these smart deployment strategies is what allows for the continuous, nonstop updates we now expect from all our apps. Companies can roll out changes with almost no risk, which means better apps and way fewer disruptions for us. After seeing both sides, the big question is still there, isn't it? Is the old monolith always bad? And are these shiny new microservices always the right answer? Well, like with most things in technology, it's just not that simple. The right choice, as you can see here, really depends on the job. For a startup that just needs to get their idea out the door as fast as possible, the simplicity of that single monolith building is often their best friend. But for a huge, complex platform that needs to scale and evolve for years, like a global streaming service, yeah, the flexibility of that microservice campus becomes absolutely essential. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This trend towards smaller, independent, distributed services, it's only speeding up. We've gone from one building to a campus. The next step could be a whole global city of services. And the great challenge of the future, it probably won't be building the individual pieces. It'll be managing the mind-boggling complexity of how they all connect and work together.